How's it going, everybody? What do we have here? Is it an imperial crawler? No. Is it one of the nudibranchs so popular with underwater photographers and videographers? No. This is a flatworm, so in contrast to the nudibranchs, this is not a mollusk, it's its own film. And these are equally beautiful animals, really. As the name implies, they're rather flat. The internal architecture of these worms is much simpler than those of a mollusk. They're more simple animals. Very curiously, this one was in a fight. Here you can see the Amphipod skeleton shrimp, which is fighting a flatworm multiple times its size. So I blew this up a little bit, that you can see in the zoom how these two are getting it on. And eventually the flatworm rolls over this Amphipod skeleton shrimp. Now, based on their flamboyant coloration, I believe these are probably rather poisonous animals, but there's not that much information really out on them. This is in a dive site, which is a fantastic muck diving site. So you can observe a few things. The worm is crawling over this dirty looking sand. So there's this cyanobacterial layer. There are lots of tiny hydroids, anemones. This is the kind of sand you have to look for when you're looking for good muck diving. So right now it's on top of this algae layer, these nutrients which provide nutrients for the small critters. This is what creates good muck diving. There was also current, and so the flatworm was blown off. Major highlight of this dive was this frogfish. So frogfish are these very odd looking fish. A lot of their relatives are found in the deep sea. They're very immobile usually. They only very occasionally move, and they're camouflaged. They look like a piece of rock that's covered in sponge, or just a sponge itself. You can see the large mouth. The camouflage really serves two purposes. One is that it's not being eaten, and number two, that it's not very salient for its prey animals. So in between here we're yawning. Now, it's not 100% clear what the purpose of this yawning is. Probably it's some kind of stretch for the jaw muscles, or it could be a type of signal, a kind of threat, I'm big, I'm here, leave me alone. So here we see another massive yawn. You can see the amazing anatomy of the mouth, of the jaw of this fish. In between the eyes, on the top right of the view now, you'll see this lure. So this is a dorsal fin spine which got adapted in evolution to become something of a lure. So this often moves, not very much in this case with this fish, but sometimes they actually move these so that they look like a little bit like a worm, so that smaller fish, for instance cardinal fish, would approach that thinking that this would be a rich meal for them, and then they would get eaten by this amorphous blob of a fish, which is the frogfish. Now, very curiously, these are fish which actually rather walk than swim. They can swim, but based on their anatomy, they're really more apt to pushing themselves forward with their pelvic and pectoral fins, just like a land vertebrate going on a walk. And this is fish locomotion. Totally unlike the swimming we see from so many different fish. Yeah, again, I've rarely seen them swim, but it takes too much energy, so they prefer not to do that. Beautiful fish. What a face. Yeah, here I have another little sequence of it walking. I shot this with my Enon Buckeye close focus wide angle lens. As you can probably tell if you watch more of my videos, I love this lens. It gives you this close focus view on these animals underwater, and at the same time you see the whole scene behind it. There's another macro shot. You see the lure on the right, in between the eyes really well. What an amazing fish. These patterns on the skin of these change, and it seems to me that they definitely adapt to the kind of environment they're in. Here we have a goby, of course. This is Amblygobius falina, I believe. Very well camouflaged as well for this algae covered muck site. There's a book of mine coming out about gobies in a couple of weeks. I put the link in the description. This is going to be a good book. Now, back to the muck dive. I also saw a couple of very interesting nudibranchs. Again, big contrast to the flatworm in the beginning. This is a mollusk. You can see the rhinopores on the head. These are olfactory organs, and you can see the gills on the top. Naked gills. They're not covered, hence nudibranches. And there is a massive adaptive radiation in the tropical Indo-Pacific of these. There's so many different species, and I believe it's mostly because they're enormous food specialists. They only feed on a few sources of food. Again, nice shot here, I believe, of the gills in the center of the body of the animal. So these are respiratory organs, of course. Very cool, always a pleasure to observe these. Are the sand anemones, and you get like this odd point of view here that my friend Laura is behind the anemone, and because of the perspective she looks really tiny, and it looks as if the anemone is almost going to get her. So fortunately that didn't happen. Again, you see this kind of texture in the sand. To finish up the dive, we saw this piece of worm sand feces. I'm still not sure what kind of worm this is. So many things to learn still. Check back soon, please.